one business takes on many challenges. But when they're beyond what one can solve, it'll take more. Each one pitching in to form seamlessly linked solutions. And with a partner to innovate and collaborate, we can create better experiences than we ever could alone, to become more valued than we'd ever be on our own. Because there's nothing greater than working as one to make an impact in people's lives. Redefine our greatness. Globe Business.
Your safety is our priority. This video will guide us on what to do in case an emergency happens while we are in AIM. In case of fire, follow the race procedure. Rescue anyone in immediate danger. Alert others by activating the alarm system and use fire extinguishers if safe to do so. Contain the fire by closing the door if you're the last person to leave the room, and evacuate the building using the nearest exit. Remember, do not use the lift or the elevator. In case of earthquake, execute drop, cover, and hold. Drop under sturdy desk or table, cover yourself, and hold on. Be alert, and watch out for falling objects. Once the shaking stops, exit the building and follow your evacuation plan. You are on the 3rd floor, Aboitiz Tech Space. From here, we have 3 exit stairs. Just follow these directions until you reach the ground level. Our security team will be there to guide you to the evacuation area. Your designated evacuation area is at the employee parking area along Gamboa Street. Once you are out of the building, do not go back. Wait for our instruction if it's safe to return or not. If you're hurt or injured, or know someone in need of medical attention, there will be medical personnel at the evacuation area and they will help you. If you have other concerns, you may approach any of our security personnel and they will assist you. Thank you for your cooperation. Stay safe, everyone.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiging, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingin, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bagaw, ay hinatang paglang awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iibig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang hindi magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling ko. Ang inigaya ng kantay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you. Kindly take your seats as we begin today's lab. May I also ask you to turn your attention on the screen for some reminders. More importantly, for those who are at the Aboitiz Tech Space, the microphones are suspended and activated, so please maintain silence while we are in the proceeding, as we are live also on Zoom and on Facebook. And that's a short teaser for you about today's lab. And to officially kick off our lab, may I invite Mr. Guillermo Billus, Chairman of the Liveable Cities Philippines, and also Chairman of the Rizalino S. Navarro Policy Center for Competitiveness at the Asian Institute of Management. Over to you, Sir Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Liveable Cities Lab here at Aboitiz Tech Space in the Asian Institute of Management in Makati. I'd like to also extend a warm welcome to our viewers joining us on Zoom and Facebook Live this afternoon. It's our pleasure to host the 5th Liveable Cities Lab for the year, made possible through our partnership with Globe Telecom and the League of Cities of the Philippines, and in collaboration with the Asian Institute of Management. Today's lab is a very timely one. I think you will remember that about a month ago, or maybe a little more than a month ago, we had Typhoon Carinnes, and we were flooded to Typhoon Ondoy proportion. For those of you who were around in Typhoon Ondoy 2009, most of you are a bit too young for that maybe, but 2009, Ondoy was the literal high water mark for floods. Then we had Carinnes, and then we had Enteng just last week, I guess, no? We had Enteng. And we were actually worried that we would get another typhoon today, but fortunately that veered north and we dodged that one, but there is another one on the way. So this is an important time. We face a challenge that hits very close to home for all of us, that of flooding. In recent weeks, many of our communities have experienced the devastating effects of heavy rainfall and severe flooding brought on by recent typhoons. Families have been displaced, businesses disrupted, and entire cities overwhelmed. These events remind us of our vulnerability as a nation. We are, as a country, situated in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the typhoon belt. So we're one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. We endure about 20 to maybe 25 typhoons in a year, and many of them bring torrential rainfall that leads to dangerous floods. And this is all exacerbated by climate change. So it's going to become worse, not better, over time. We rank among the top 10 nations most affected by extreme weather events, with impacts growing more severe each year. And in fact, I don't know if you noticed this morning, but in the most recent release of the World Risk Index, front page today, the Philippines for the 3rd consecutive year is #1 in the world. So that makes us the riskiest country in the world. And for those of you who are not so familiar with the World Risk Index, it measures 2 factors. One is exposure, so that's the risk of your exposure to nature. And we're #1 in that risk. But many countries, we're not unique, many other countries are also ranked quite highly in exposure to risk. But we rank number one in vulnerability, meaning our level of preparedness is very low, so that as a country we are not prepared to face these disasters. And the vulnerability is measured in terms of process and institutions and governance. So just remember those things. We can't control for nature, but we can control for our preparedness. So if we were to concentrate on our level of preparedness and reducing our vulnerability, we would not be number one in the World Risk Index. But despite these challenges, there are inspiring initiatives and solutions being implemented across the country and across various cities. And today we hope to hear from our speakers what these solutions and remedies and preventive mechanisms which can be deployed to prevent floods. There are engineering solutions, the hard solutions, and there are nature-based solutions available, and there's also data-based solutions for prevention and preparedness. And then finally, there are behavioral changes that we can deploy in order to prevent flooding. And today is all about listening to these examples, and I think trying to take home and learn what we can do from an engineering, a nature-based solution, data, and a behavioral-based solution to try to address and mitigate this flooding problem. So we've got a very good set of speakers today, and we've asked them all to give us use cases that will make it very concrete for all of us in the room and on Zoom and Facebook and in different cities across the country as to what can be done that can be put to good use in our respective LGUs. So we're honored to have this really good panel, distinguished panel with us today. And let me just quickly introduce them, then ask one by one to come up and make their presentation. Our speakers today, we have Ivanna de la Torre from Coca-Cola, and I'll introduce people in more detail later on, but we've worked with Ivanna before, and she's now working at Coke and is a new partner for Liveable Cities. We have Alvin Backing, Head of Business Development at Flood Control Asia. We have Carlo Pagulayan, who is Assistant Director and a Business Consultant for Solutions and Architecture at Globe Telecom. Those are the ones joining us on site at this venue. And then we're going to have Dr. Carinnes Alejandria, Assistant Professor at University Brunei Darussalam, and Nick Jabagat, Department Manager for the City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Department in Cagayan de Oro City. And the last two will come on board via Zoom. So let me go first with the Zoom speaker. The first one today is going to be Mr. Nick Jabagat. As I mentioned, he's the head of the City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Department in CDO, or Cagayan de Oro, where he leads crucial efforts to strengthen the city's disaster resilience and response. Nick will blend his hands-on experience and academic achievements, which make him a true leader in advanced disaster management and local governance. We're fortunate to have him here with us today. Please welcome Nick Jabagat from Cagayan de Oro City, broadcasting to us today via Zoom. Nick, can you hear us?
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us. Let me share my screen first. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me right now. I'm Nick Jabagat from Caguian-de City, and today I'm going to share with you Caguian-de City's road to resiliency. This is the scope of my presentation, a little background to Cagayan de Oro and its major flooding experience and its transformative action in the 4 thematic areas of disaster management. Cagayan de Oro has a total land area of 59,511 hectares and with 80 barangays, 7 rivers and 5 creeks, and that's one of the reasons why flooding is our #1 hazard. The city is bounded in the north by Makahalang Bay and Misamis Oriental, and in the south with the province of Bukidnon and Lanao del Sur, and Misamis Oriental on the east, and on the west is Misor and Lanao del Norte. Cagayan de Oro's river basin is one of the major river basins in the country, and it has an estimated length of 90 kilometers that drains to Makahalar Bay. Cagayan de Oro watershed starts in the Mount Kalatungan mountain range and joins with other tributaries from Mount Kitanglad in mountain range in the province of Bukidnon. And its total land area is 142,443 hectares, which 68.41% of the watershed is within the municipality of Talakag, and only 5.69% is within Cagayan de Oro City. So that's one of the biggest challenge for Cagayan de Oro on how to manage its watershed. And Cagayan de Oro watershed has 8 sub-watersheds also containing 18 rivers. As early as 2009, Cagayan de Oro City experienced already flooding along Cagayan de Oro River with minimal effects in terms of losses and damages. On December 16, 2011, 2 years later, the city experienced already the most devastating flooding incident in the history of the region. And with the absence of early warning system and other monitoring strategies, the city failed to anticipate the impacts of Sindong, internationally known as Washi, causing thousands of deaths and missing, well, with millions of damage of properties. On January 16, 2017, the Central Business District of Cagayan de Oro experienced urban flooding due to the tail end of a cold front and a low pressure area. And that brought intense rains in the city for almost 3 hours. And as per Pag-asa, the rain for 2 months was poured in just 2 hours during that time, but all the rivers of Cagayan de Oro is at normal level. It only shows that we also had a problem with our drainages and our creeks. After on January 16 and on after Shandong, experts said that the return period of this volume of water would take 20 or after 50 years. But on December 21, 2017, Tropical Storm Vinta came with a Sindon-like volume of flood water. The only difference is that it came during daytime. And because of the established early warning system of the Cagayan de Oro River watershed and the existence of the CDO River Hydromet Protocol, Cagayan de Oro was able to attain zero casualty and a minimal damage of properties. Exactly on December 16, 2021, the 10th year anniversary of Sindong, came Super Typhoon Odette. So we're lucky enough that the track of the typhoon was changed, but still, the eastern part of Aguiling-Dela was still flooded during that time. And based on the chart shown, there is a big change in the data of the casualty and the damage of properties from Shandong to Odette. And that is why we are I know that we're on the right track on our journey to resiliency. For transformative actions, the flood risk management project for Cagayan-de-Oro River is composed of flood wall structure with river boulevard that will strengthen the resilience of communities along the Cagayan-de-Oro River. And this project covers the 12-kilometer stretch downstream and the portion from the river mouth up to the Pilais Bridge that features innovative technology and design approach based on a 50-year flood return period. And this project not only mitigate flood, but also improve living conditions and a more sustainable community. And we're very grateful for the Japanese government through JICA for funding this project. History Cagayan-de-Oro City has everything to do with the river, but some tragic events. The people in the community tends to escape and neglect its beauty, but with the construction of the flood wall and the creation of new open spaces within the people and the community was again reconnect with the nature and the river. During our Higala Festival, more activities are held in these open spaces, maximizing and utilizing the beauty of nature again within the city. And urban flooding continues also to challenge the city's drainage master plan and its implementation as it slows down. The interconnectivity of these drainages is very important, hoping that it will help reduce urban flooding, especially on the business district and major thoroughfares of the city. The interconnection and expansion of some drainages in the city is ongoing to help solve the problem on urban flooding, and the LGU and DPWH are working closely to look into the cause of the delay of these projects. In order also to help the problem of urban flooding, the LGU launches a Hapsay-Sapa project, a project that will focus on the creeks of the city. The basic concept and plan of the project is to rehabilitate and empower the community in uplifting their quality of life and the proper management of solid waste to provide ideal living conditions. Next slide. So, another project is Project Lunhao. This greening project intends to reduce urban heat and will set the standards for city public spaces, providing a walkable environment with pedestrian-centered mobility system. And with the installation of the early warning system in the Cagayan-de-Oro River Basin and its watershed after Sendong, Pag-asa DOST and the local government unit of Cagayan-de-Oro was able to craft its first side limit protocol for Cagayan-de-Oro River and the Ipunan River. This side limit evacuation communication protocol was implemented during Typhoon Binta in 2017, and we were able to, one of the key factors that the city was able to achieve zero casualty during that time. Next. Next. The city also has its real-time monitoring on the seven automated weather station of the Manila Observatory, originally operated by a British company. This will also help us in monitoring and forecasting of a possible urban flooding in the city. And this is the latest flood forecasting project, hopefully to be launched before the end of this month. It's a part of JICA's non-structural measures of the Princidor, the flood risk management project of the Carinnes River, and it uses radio frequency in transmitting its data. And it covers almost half of the island of Mindanao. With the completion of the Princidor along Cagayan de Oro River, we also updated our existing hydromet protocol with Pag-asa and the OST. This enables us to recalibrate its parameters, its required actions, and disseminate this updated information and protocols to the community through orientation and simulation exercises. The LGU also has regular updating and revisiting of its plans just to make sure that the PPAs are still relevant and are being implemented seriously. Thus, we also have a quarterly monitoring and evaluation of all our PPAs. The office has its own CIS section with personnel trained and tasked to identify and perform risk assessment on all hazard per sitio or per zone. And they're also especially on the identification, inventory of critical facilities, and it helps us also in a calculated evacuation of affected families on high-risk areas. We also facilitate on the updating of enhanced BDRIM plans, especially every after election. There are new sets of barangay officials to make sure that their PPAs are in line with the respective hazards. With the rapid land conversion and development within Cagayan de Oro watershed, we created an inter-LGU management of the Cagayan de Oro River watershed, focusing on the monitoring of any land conversion and development within the watershed and its mitigating actions of the possible impacts of the community. During the pandemic, some areas within the watershed were leased by international companies and converted into plantation, and also the fast development of mountain resorts and restaurants within the watershed, and even worse, in some protected areas of the watershed. The city has also a continuous capacity development program for all the barangays and DRRM council members and our neighboring LGUs. The city has also invested the equipments and training of personnel that can be used during rescue operations. Cagayan de Oro established its 911 call center since 2016 and its free-to-all network. And today we acquired the next generation advanced 911 emergency call handling system, where we can expand and isolate emergency calls to our neighboring partner LGUs. For smooth and organized disaster operations or even on big events in the city, CDO is equipped or has with trained personnel on emergency operation center management and the incident command system. It focuses on the management of resources and consequence management, and it also maximizes coordination with all stakeholders. We also activated our joint information center during disasters and big events to have centralized information dissemination on all media platforms and eliminates the spread of fake news. To reduce or eliminate exposed individuals living on high-risk areas, the city created a separate department on 2017 that is tasked on the relocation and housing. This is the City Housing and Urban Development Department. And now the city is targeting on acquiring 20 units in the next 2 years with the opening of the Clarix Bill 1 and 2. To sustain our relocation sites, the Homeowners Association has their own livelihood programs and continuous skills training in partnership with TESDA. And I just want to share our ongoing project also. This is to maximize our services and mandates. Bigger space and a new facility is now ongoing construction as our new home. This is the Disaster Resilience Complex, aiming to serve not just the people of Cagayan de Oro, but the whole region. It has a 5-story CDR&D building, a disaster preparedness center, logistic hub, a centralized operation center, an evacuation center for affected personnel or staff. And this would be a training hub for the region. And for Cagayan de Oro, building a resilient city is not a destination, it's always a journey. That is why we're always learning. And again, thank you very much for inviting us. I hope I shared something that can help other LGUs in building resilient, flood resilient cities. Again, good afternoon.
Thank you, Nick, for the very comprehensive presentation from your flood transition and management to your disaster response and preparedness, all the way to your EOC and disaster preparedness center. Very good. I think one of the things we can see from Nick's presentation, and this is something that we all used to think about before, was that some of these big floods had a 20 or 30-year return period, but that's not the case. They're happening every almost 3 or 4 years, and this year we've seen 2 big ones in Metro Manila in a matter of 2 months, or even less maybe. So the return periods are not as long as they used to be, and floods are just as extreme. However, I think what's significant in Nick's presentation is that when you take a look at the casualty rate and the number of injuries and the property loss from Sendong, they are much, much higher than what you saw for Vinta and Odette, I think is what you showed, right, Nick? And this is what's happened also with the country since the highest number of casualties we had was in Super Typhoon Haiyan, no? Yolanda, 2013. But the numbers in terms of casualties have dropped significantly. I'm not too sure about the property damage. I think they've dropped a little bit as well, though we still have a lot of agricultural damage that we face, depending on what regions have been hit. So, but thank you, Nick, for the presentation, and we're off to a good start. I think we're learning a lot. For the next one, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to invite Ivanna Aguiling-Dela Torre to come and join us. Ivanna is a senior director for the East Cluster at Coca-Cola Philippines that manages Philippines, Cambodia, and Vietnam, right, Ivanna? And she brings with her over 2 decades of experience in public affairs, sustainability, and communications across Southeast Asia. I've worked with Ivanna many years ago when we were doing the World Economic Forum here in Manila, and most recently she was also with Sanofi, where we also worked together with her when she was with Sanofi, and we were working more on a public health project on or about the time, I think, of COVID, in fact, because they helped us track vaccinations and things like this. So now we're going to shift gears, and she's with us on sustainability and on looking at what we can do from her perspective and how that impacts on flooding or counter flooding, actually, is what we rather look at it as a flood prevention system. So let's please welcome Ivanna to join us up here on stage.
Thank you very much, Bill. And good morning, everybody. So again, I'm Ivanna de la Torre from Coca-Cola Philippines. It's glad to be here at this critical discussion on designing flood-resilient cities. I will be focusing my presentation on our collection programs. Bill earlier mentioned behavioral change, so a lot of our programs are really hinged on getting the communities involved to change the mindset, perspective, and behavior on waste management. But I will also be touching on the need for infrastructure support, especially at the local level, and also some policy conversations that we need to be having in order to support the local recycling environment. So at Coca-Cola, we are deeply committed to the global World Without Waste initiative. This is our global commitment, which aims to collect and recycle a bottle or can for every one we sell by 2030. So this is our global commitment. And in the Philippines, this mission comes to life through grassroots efforts with our local communities that are also flood-prone areas, and therefore where waste management plays a crucial role in urban resilience. Testing if this works. While we're waiting for that, all right. So one of our key initiatives, it's called iStar. It's working with our micro retailers. We call them micro retailers, but these are really your sari-sari stores or Carinderia owners. We know that there are tens and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them sprawling across the country. So these are small businesses that play a huge role in the Philippine economy in general, but also a huge role in our own value chain. We recognize their potential to be agents of change in their own communities, especially in waste management. Through this program, iStar, which we do with TESDA, it's a decade-long program. We provide micro retailers with access to training, access to resources, and access to peer mentoring. So it's really these three pillars that we provide. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, this is a 10-year-old program with TESDA, and now we've had over 100,000 graduates, and we've just finished launching 7 centers for entrepreneurship across the country. We do this with TESDA, but also with local NGOs across the country to make sure that the training is not only online, but that can also be done face-to-face, and even beyond that, because we know that digital infrastructure is challenging, especially in the far-flung areas. The teachers or the facilitators in these centers are able to go to the communities, bring the laptops with the training materials, and conduct the trainings wherever the community members are. So just to show you a true example of collaboration that we've done through iStar, this is a picture of a total of 20 graduates of iStar, 20 sari-sari store Carinderia owners. PASCO stands for Philippine Association of Sari-Sari Store and Carinderia Owners. They formed a cooperative in 2023 and started the Eco Grocer Store in Muntinlupa, LGU. They established a catering business. They joined different bazaars. They sold their own products. And by doing this, by coming together, they collectively have an additional income of 100,000 pesos monthly for them. So that's on top of the income that they receive, that they yield through their own sari-sari stores or carinderias. So that has allowed them to acquire laptop tech tools as well for their own businesses. I will show a video of iStar so you can appreciate.
In the city of Muntinlupa, some women entrepreneurs underwent iStar training. They needed to learn on how to go through their modules. After finishing the program, they formed the Pasco Producers Cooperative.
Yung mga plano namin, yung goal namin, pinagsama-sama namin. Doon nagsimula ang 20 na members ng aming cooperative.
Coca-Cola Philippines provided technical assistance to the group and helped them in their cooperative business planning. From a traditional food outlet, they formed an eco-grocer, combining all their specialty products and foods and also a catering business.
Lahat ng product na kaya niyang iluto, doon namin lahat pinagsasama-sama. From their extra income.
iStar made a big impact, which allowed them to earn individually and as a cooperative business.
Kami ang Pasco, proud iStar ng Muntinlupa City!
But it doesn't stop there. So now that their businesses are viable, they have more capacity and also headspace to champion circularity. And this takes us to our next program, which is really more focused on collection. So we call this Tindahan Extra Mile, which is our PET collection program, also with the sari-sari stores and Carinnes owners. It's a simple yet effective program. We incentivize the micro-retailers to collect PET bottles from their own communities. These bottles are then sold back into the system and sent to recycling facilities. So how it works is each time a micro-retailer collects PET, they earn what we call environmental points. And these points can be reinvested into their businesses, either for expansion or for new inventory or even for equipment upgrade. And the system, as you can see, not only supports the environment, but also strengthens local economies, which is crucial for building resilience, especially in flood-prone areas. So again, a video on
Kasama ang Best at Pasco.
Tindahan
Binibigyan
Extra
ng
Mile.
pagkakataon ng Coca-Cola Philippines ang mga sari-sari store owners sa bansa na madagdagan ang kanilang kita sa pamamagitan ng pagkolekta at pag-recycle ng mga PET bottles gamit ang naiipong environmental points sa ilalim ng Tindahan Extra Mile.
Ako po si Lorely P.D. Guzman. 5 months na akong member ng Tindahan Extra Mile. Isa sa mga benepisyo na nakuha namin dito, yung points, nakakatulong para mabili namin yung mga ibang paninda namin. Yung mga points na yon, pwede namin din i-convert na pambili din sa dagdag puhunan namin.
Katulad ni Lori, pwede rin kayong maging Tindahan Extra Mile partners. 3 easy steps lang at ganap na TEM Miler ka na.
Sama-sama tayong mangolekta ng PET bottles at mag-ipon ng environmental points. Tara na! Sumali sa Tindahan Extra Mile.
So they're super simple. Right now we have 3,500 partners. We call them TE Milers. Also, this is across the country, but most of them are really still in the Greater Manila area. We did launch this as well in Bacolod just this year, where we were able to partner up with 500 collection hubs, and so we work with the local government. So we see Mayor Benitez over there, and BEST, which is our solid waste management partner. All right, so we know that it doesn't stop there, and we know that when we talk about lasting change, this requires collaboration beyond the private sector. And now we'll talk about really more the infrastructure program. So from economic empowerment to behavioral change within the communities on collection programs. Now we're going to be talking about, again, training, but also infrastructure support and then policy advocacy. So we partner up with national agencies. We work very, very closely with TESDA, DNR, DALG, and local governments to deliver comprehensive training programs on solid waste management. This is in order to help at the barangay level, help them design and implement their solid waste management plans. So we train barangay workers on how to design and implement waste management plans effectively. Flood resilience, as we all know, goes hand in hand with proper waste disposal. So we saw this in the CDO case study earlier. When communities are They reduce the risk of blocked drainage systems that contribute to flooding. And so our aim is to equip barangays with the knowledge and tools they need to address waste management challenges, thus making them more resilient to floods. In addition to working with local governments, we do collaborate with community NGOs to co-establish material recovery facilities. So we've seen that not all barangays or not all communities have an MRF. So we support the establishment of the MRFs with our partner NGOs. And these facilities are essential for waste collection, segregation, and processing. At these MRFs, PET and other waste are sorted, and the collected PET bottles are again sent to recycling facilities where they are transformed into valuable resources, bottles, or other products. This closes the loop, ensuring that the waste we generate doesn't end up in landfills or waterways contributing to floods, but instead become part of the circular economy. So you'll see here some examples. This is Happy Earth Enterprise in Nueva Ecija. This is one of our earlier pilots. And just this, I think this is 3 months ago, we set up an MRF also in Tagum City in Davao del Norte. So we would provide resource support to establish the MRF for the actual build, the trash bins, the baling machines, and other logistical requirements that the MRF would have. What's interesting about this Davao del Norte MRF is not only do they sell back the PET bottles, the recyclable plastics, to recycling facilities, they've also set up an area where they turn the flexibles, so outside of PET, the flexibles into eco bricks, and then they use that to build social housing. And so I think it was 5 or 7 houses that they were able to donate to their own community members because of this. Lastly, our goal in promoting recycling is to foster a thriving local ecosystem that can handle the waste we generate rather than relying on exports. And this is really my call to action here. To create this, we need an enabling environment for local recyclers, one that provides them with the resources and support needed to scale up their operations and invest in advanced recycling technologies. This involves working with policymakers and local governments to ensure that local recyclers can compete on a level playing field, while export markets for recyclable plastic feedstocks can offer immediate outlets. Our focus should be on nurturing local recycling infrastructure. Indonesia has a very robust local recycling environment, and we hope that the Philippines could be one as well. This will all allow us to process materials domestically, contributing to local economies and jobs, while reducing our reliance on external markets. So for the Happy Earth case study that I shared earlier, that has allowed employment of informal waste collectors through that program. By supporting policies that encourage domestic recycling and minimize barriers for local players, we can build a robust system that not only manages plastic waste, but also contributes to circularity within our own borders. This approach ensures long-term sustainability for both the environment and local industries, creating a win-win for communities and the planet. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivanna. I think this is an important program because we know how much garbage and plastic waste in particular contribute to flooding. So it is good to see companies like Coke and others try to recover as much material as they can and get them back into recycling and complete the circular loop. By the way, of course, because of the Extended Producers Responsibility Act, EPR, companies do have to recover as much material as they can, and obviously the more they recover, that pulls it away from people just not only putting it in the landfill, but worse, just throwing them in esteros, and down the drains, which really cause all the floods that we've been seeing, or certainly have been contributing to the floods that we're seeing. So thanks, Ivanna, for that presentation, and you can count, I think, on the support of all of us here to push more waste recycling. For our third speaker, let's change gear again and go into something that's a little more data intensive. Let me bring on Carlo Pagulayan from Globe. He's the Assistant Director of Business Consulting at Globe Business, and he's a passionate advocate for harnessing technology to drive business transformation. He emphasizes the critical role of digital adoption in maintaining a competitive edge, and his expertise lies in integrating technology and communication systems to optimize business processes. In his presentation, Carlo will share valuable insights into how innovative technological solutions can significantly enhance flood response and recovery efforts. Please join me in welcoming Carlo Pagulayan from Globe.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Carlo Pagulayan. I'm a business consultant at Globe Telecom. So today I'll be sharing how solutions from Globe can enable and help cities to be prepared and resilient in times of calamities or disasters. But before I begin, I'll give an overview of Globe Group. So many of you know Globe as a telco, but actually in the recent years, Globe has already become more than just a telco. Globe has already created related businesses that strengthen Globe's commitment to deliver solutions to improve the lives of Filipinos through the use of technology. Some of the brands I think are familiar already. So we have GCash for FinTech. We also have Consulta MD for Health Tech, Incaro for big data, and to name a few. Building intelligent cities is not about being high-tech. It's about empowering LGUs or cities to be more efficient in delivering services to its constituents. Globe actually has 4 pillars to support the Intelligent Cities Initiative. But for this afternoon, I'll be focusing on solutions that will harness the power of data to enable cities to be ready and resilient in times of calamities. Incaro is the data analytics company of Globe Telecom. Incaro has millions of unique customer profiles with close to 30 million mobile ad IDs and over 600 attributes and datasets. At Incaro, machine learning or ML is fundamental to the core of what they do. Incaro uses machine learning algorithms to create and optimize data products and profiles. For instance, Incaro uses ML to recognize patterns in consumer behavior. This allows for creation of alternative scoring solutions. Also, by identifying patterns in the dataset, predictions can be made on unseen data, allowing databases with missing inputs to be filled in with data to form a holistic view of the profiles. Lastly, ML is used to group datasets and intensify which profiles are lookalikes or of another set of profiles. So how can we use data to empower LGUs in disaster preparedness and recovery? Data coming from Incaro can help LGUs in identifying vulnerabilities, predict potential impacts, and as well as tailor responses strategies. Incaro's rich datasets can help LGUs on precise and effective risk planning and assessment, creating localized and personalized awareness campaigns, and of course help in deploying data-driven evacuation plans and adaptive disaster response. To cite a few examples on how Incaro can be used by LGUs. So this is one example where LGUs can prepare for typhoons. So with the use of footfall analysis, LGUs can utilize real and high-quality data for post-disaster planning and assessment. So another use case, also using footfall, we can use this data more updated data versus census data, since census data can be outdated and does not allow to capture people's activity spaces or people traveling around the area. Okay, so this is going beyond the usual static profiles, right? So we can capture people moving around locations at certain points of time and or historical behaviors. So Incuro can be a very useful platform for LGUs in pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster phases by providing more relevant and recent data to LGUs. And lastly, Incuro's platform together with Globe's messaging platform, M360, which can be used as the digital channel to communicate to cities' constituents, make up Globe's portfolio of solutions to enable intelligent cities in their disaster preparedness and campaigns. So this will be my last slide, and if you want to know more, you can reach us through this QR code. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlo. Yeah, very interesting. So I've got a couple of really good ideas. I think I like the idea that we can track movement of people and match that up with disasters or inbound disasters like weather forecasts, and then couple that with a messaging system so we can actually warn people to stay away from floods and or stay away from danger and to evacuate or to shelter in place as the case may be. So I think it's a very useful, practical approach. I'm sure if you gave us another hour of brainstorming, we're going to find out how many more uses we can think of right in this room. So thanks for that. For our next presentation, we're going to go to a hard engineering solution to the flood. So we talked about a big picture flood management and prevention program and response program from Cagayan de Oro to a behavioral type of program to reduce trash going into the to contribute towards floods from Coca-Cola, to a data solution from Globe. And now I'm going to move to a solution provided by Flood Control Asia. And here is when we are just faced with the inevitability of floods. We're going to have it anyway. So these guys have figured out a way to manage around that. So let me introduce Alvin Backing from Flood Control Asia. He's the head of business development, where he leads the expansion of innovative flood control solutions across Asia. With a proven track record, Alvin has overseen the implementation of flood control systems in Qatar and has been instrumental in delivering over 35,000 solutions across 35 countries. And by the way, for those of you not familiar with Flood Control Asia, but I don't know, is it your head office or your manufacturing office? Both is based in Clark, Pampanga. Okay, so he may do work in 35 countries and in many places, but actually they're based right in Clark. So let's please welcome Alvin Backing from Flood Control Asia.
Thank you so much, Sir Bill. Yeah, Good afternoon for everybody here and also watching us live on Zoom and Facebook, I think. No? Okay, good afternoon. I'm Alvin Baking. I'm the head of business development for Flood Control HRS Corporation. Yeah, we are situated in Clark, but our company is operating globally. Our headquarters is in Germany. Actually, we are a German-based company managed by a German engineer, Dr. Andreas Klebe. He's supposed to be the one speaking here right now, but he's currently in Germany, currently traveling, going to Dubai right now. He's on a plane. I don't know if he's able to watch us, but yeah, he's sending his kind regards to everybody. Okay, so our topic for this afternoon is about the flood resilience and how to make critical infrastructures safe against flood. Okay, so we've been in the business since 1990, and we brought the technology, the German technology here in the Philippines way back in 2014. So we are already at 10th year here. So yeah, so I'm going to introduce to you how to, the innovative technologies to protect cities against flooding. Okay, so let's start with protecting cities. So this is very ambitious, protecting the entire city against flooding, but let me just show you some example. But before that, I know most of us here have experienced flooding already. Who among us haven't experienced any kind of flood in their entire life? Of course, we have experienced it. And the main reason or the main cause of flooding is first is the amount of rainfall, of course. The amount of rainfall right now, year over year, the amount of rainfall is getting worse. It's getting higher. And then the second factor for the flooding is the surface runoff. Now, what is surface runoff? As you can see here in the picture, it is caused by the urban development. Okay, so normally the soil can absorb the water by nature. It's what we call permeable. They can absorb the rain, and so that's why there's not much flood. But as we turn these farmlands, mountains into cities, we turn the soil into concrete, and we lead them to a drainage system leading to the tributary rivers, then that causes flooding. How? All the water will now run off to the river, but the river has sufficient or has enough volume to accumulate or to accommodate. Okay? But if the rainwater if the river can no longer accommodate the rainwater, then that causes backflow and it goes back to the city. So same here, as you can see, the meandering line there is actually the river, but it's already filled. That's why it backflows and goes back to the city. Okay, so the only way to do that is to increase the volume capacity of the river. Because if we are increasing the urban areas and we are all leading the water, our drainage system is all leading to the river, then we should increase the river system. Now, that is actually the main problem here in Metro Manila because we don't have enough space to increase the volume or decrease the capacity of the river. We're already occupied. Okay, so let's skip that one. Okay, I just wanted to show you. During those days, our solution before, we were using sandbags, but we know already that sandbags will not work, especially with this kind of hydrostatic pressure or the kinetic pressure coming from the waves. Now, I just wanted to point out, I just borrowed this photo. This is the Marikina River. I'm sure you're familiar with this one. So as I've mentioned, the only way to prevent the backflow coming from the river is increase the volume. During Ondoy, the Marikina River, I think the capacity or the flow rate there is 2,400 cubic meter per second. That is the flow rate, the natural flow rate of Marikina River. But during Ondoy, it reached nearly 4,000 cubic meter per second. That's why it was so overcapacitated and it really flooded the entire Cainta and the Rizal area region. Okay, so again, we need to increase the capacity. How? Well, first, we can widen it if we have the space to widen it. Second, we can dredge. No? But in some cases, the dredging cannot work because it still silts. Now, coming from the mountains, then it still be silted, so the basin is still shallow. Or we can build dike along the riverside to increase the capacity of the river. But in some cases, dikes are not possible because of the area. We know already how to build dikes. Cagayan de Oro has shown to us they build roads on these dikes because they're still in the rural area. Okay, they have still the space to do so. To build dikes, it's what we call the 1:3 ratio. For every 1 unit of height, we need 3 units of base. Okay, so if you need 3 meters of flood wall or flood dike, you need 9 meters of base. And sometimes we don't have, especially here, under our example, Marikina River, we don't have the space anymore to build that. Okay, so these are some cases. So that's why this is where our technology comes in. So there are some areas that the traditional hard engineering solutions are not applicable or not feasible. So let me just show you one of our case, what we did in Hong Kong way back in 2014. Okay. This is called the Tai O River. This is the southern tip of Hong Kong. I don't know if you've been there already. So it's a fishing village, but as you can see in the photo, these are not fishing boats. These are tourist boats, right? Because this area is a tourist attraction. The area is filled with seafood restaurants, fresh seafood market, and yeah, so that's why a lot of tourists are flocking in. But of course, just like here in the Philippines, they also experience flooding because they are near the river delta. This river is actually at the river delta. Okay? And the 25-year return period for this city is 1.6 meters above the street level. I think somewhere about 5.5 from the sea level. They are about just 3 meters away from the sea level. So it's really, really shallow. Okay? So as you can see in the photo, that is not yet the highest possible flood that they're expecting because 1.6, I'm 1.8, 1.6 is somewhere about my shoulder height. So that one is somewhere about just less than a meter. So they're not yet experiencing the highest flood possible. Okay, so the only solution, as I mentioned earlier, is to build a flood wall. That is the only solution that they can think of to increase the flow rate or the volume capacity of the river. And to add to that, the downtime of this city reaches up to 7 days because there are more like chillers, restaurants. So to recover from this kind of flooding, it takes them almost a week. So that is a huge economic impact according to their local government unit. So the solution was to build a flood wall, but the residents doesn't like to put a 1.6 meters on the riverbank. Why? Because they will not have access to the river anymore. Likewise, these passenger boats cruising along the river will not see the restaurants at the market. So they don't want to lose that touristic value of the city. So we are only allowed to put wall up to 1 meter. Okay, so as you can see here on the photo, on the left side, that was the old riverbank. And on the right side, that was the improved riverbank with a permanent flood wall of 1 meter. But we know already that this 1 meter is short. We know already that it's short by 0.6 meters. So this is where our technology came in. So on the ground level, perhaps you may see it, appreciate it much better. So that on the left photo, that was the old riverbank. They were using gabions back then to prevent erosion, but since we improved it, so we have this beautiful park and this wall are embedded already with anchors. Anchors where we put in the middle supports for the temporary flood barrier. These are the middle supports. Okay, so they put it up. We have anchors already embedded, and they screw it, bolt it on the anchors. Okay, and then they insert the beams. Okay, along this river, I think it's more like 450 meters that they have protected. So it traverses all the way, even the backyards of the hotels and the restaurants there. So on this photo, this is the head of, I think, just like our DPWH here, the Public Works, inspecting, because this is a government project. Okay. So this was the commissioning. So as you can see here, these are the demountable flood wall that was installed on top of the permanent flood wall. Now, if you're wondering, where do you keep all these beams when you're not using it? Of course, you need some kind of logistics, right? Where do you keep it? How do you bring it there? So to make the reaction time faster, because that's one also of our consideration when we are designing flood barriers. We have to consider the fast reaction time. So the flood beams are actually stored. You see the benches? So underneath the benches are compartments with trolleys where all the beams are there. So it's really close by. They just need to pull it out and then put the beams, install the beams on top of the wall. Okay, so in 2016, that was 2014. 2016, the actual flood came. That is the expected flood that they are coming. Actually, as you can see here, it's just touching the 1 meter flood wall, nearly to the demountable flood barrier. But on the next photo, the flood already came over the wall. It's somewhere about 1.2 flood height. So it's already at the demountable flood barrier. Imagine if the demountable barrier is not there, then this flood wall is useless, right? Okay, so this is the kind of technology that we are designing together with other engineers, of course, to do that's what we call the innovative technologies to prevent cities. But of course, it's not only the flood barriers working here. It's a combination of improved drainage system, pumping stations. So you can see here, there's a vegetation at the upper left photo. That's actually a pumping station. We concealed it under that vegetation. And then the drainage are also improved. So this is the kind of technology that we are actually proposing. So in this area, dikes are not possible. It's no longer possible to dredge, and we cannot widen it. So at least we can increase the flood wall, but we are limited to the permanent height. That's why we have this demountable flood barrier at the top. Okay, so anyway, it's not every day that it's flooding like this. So they just need to put it up when they have a flood warning already. Another case is in Austria. This time, it's almost the same situation with Hong Kong, but this time it's 3 meters high. It's not 1.6, it's 3 meters. 3 meters is as high as a first floor building, first floor of the building. So you can see here, yeah, it's a really beautiful place. And the boats there are also river cruising ships. They are tourist boats. So it's a tourist attraction. And they have that kind of problem, a 3 meter flood. And as you can see, the flood wall is also raised only up to 1 meter because they don't want to put up a 3 meter wall along this river. Otherwise, you'll be like inside a jail or something. So as you can see, the flood wall is already improved, fresh concrete, with all these black strips. Those black strips are the anchors for the 3 meter middle supports. Earlier I showed you the 600 millimeter supports, but this time it's 3 meters, 3,000 millimeters. Okay, so this is the time when they put up all the demountable middle supports, and an aerial view looks like this. So they look like toothpick, but they're actually massive. So when they are putting it up, but this time they have I think almost 12 hours lead time to react because it's way too big, too huge, and the logistics, they need to carry it by crates. Okay. So when the flood comes, it looks like this. Okay. Before it looked like that, then when the flood is coming, it's like that. So can you imagine if this demountable flood wall is not existing there? So I'm quite sure all these houses, beautiful houses, old houses are destroyed by this flood. And it will take more than months to recover with that kind of flooding. Okay. So this is what we call the innovative technologies that we are thinking and we are designing now. By the way, it's not an off-the-shelf thing. It's not like it's ready to use. It's we design it. It's a customized barrier. So yeah, it's so satisfying to see this kind of scenario somewhere in Metro Manila. But to mind you, we are still using pumps. No? It's not, of course, that this is leak-proof or something like that. But of course, it can hold the surge of water. That's the most important thing. And then we can manage it by pumps. Yeah, that's the thing. But to see this kind of photo is really satisfying for me. Okay. So next, in case that we don't want to put up on hard engineering, we also have some kind of an emergency that is really fast to install. We call it the mobile flood barrier. Yeah, so you can actually, we call this the strike anywhere flood barrier because you don't need any kind of installation unlike the one that we have shown you. You can actually put it up just like here in Artran in Sweden. So they didn't put up the demountable flood barrier, but they used this mobile flood barrier, and this is how it looks like. So it's really easy, a fast solution for that. But the height is limited, it's up to only 1.5 meters. So, but for higher barrier or higher capacity, then the demountable should be it. Another is in UK. So they also faced this kind of problem before. They used wood, but they want it permanent, so they use glass instead. They don't want to dismantle and put them back again every time it floods. So they want it permanent, and they want to see the view still. So they use glass, so it looks like this during the dry season, but on the wet season, it looks like that. It looks like an aquarium. Probably you'll be seeing piranha or something in this aquarium. Okay, so it's still beautiful to see, although it's flooded, but it's quite satisfying to see. Okay, so we're always saying to protect cities against flooding, but of course, even I've shown you some solutions, but those solutions are still massive and take some time to implement, and it's very, very costly. No, we're not saying that it's cheap. Of course, it's costly, but much cheaper than doing the hard engineering way, the dikes and the other way. Okay, so because there are a lot of different technologies to choose from. I only shown you 3 technologies, but we have different solutions that we can offer, even automatic systems or some sorts. And what we really advocate here, we can plan to protect the entire city, but we can start off protecting the most critical infrastructures first, so that during the times of flooding, the city can still run and can still recover very, very fast. Okay, like what we're saying, power substations, telcos, perhaps, right? Factories, schools, hospitals. These are the critical infrastructure that needs flood protection. So let me just run through some of the projects also that we did for critical infrastructure. This is way back in 2011, the Singapore subway station. We know Singapore are very popular with the subway. They have a very massive subway lines. I think they have 5 or 6 subway lines all across the small city. And they got flooded one time in 2011. And this flooding incident caused a downtime of 20 days to the city. So for 20 days, they don't have subway. Okay? So that's why we were there to install the demountable flood barrier. If I'm not mistaken, out of 100 subway stations, we already protected 26 subway stations that are flood prone. So on the photo, on the left photo, the one on the red is our contractor in Singapore, Teo Ping Cheng. And then the lady standing there is Madam Fatima. Actually, she's there. Madam Fatima, who's our Executive Vice President. And then Dr. Clipe, the one in orange, he's the one supposed to be speaking here, but yeah. And then the one in blue is Rainer Stepanek. That is where the RS came from, Rainer Stepanek. You know, in Germany, they put their names into their brands, like Mercedes, Bosch, right? So RS came from that man, the one in blue in yellow shirts. It's Rainer Stepanek. So because they put the name on the quality and on the brand of they are selling. So yeah, we have protected the subway stations, and since then they haven't experienced any flooding on the subway. Okay, in Doha, Qatar, 2018, actually it was in the news now, flash floods after years worth of rain in one day. Just like what happened in Ondoy. So we know already that Qatar is in the middle of the desert. They are not even designed for flooding. They don't have drainage system. I've been there. I was wondering, where's the drainage system here? They don't have. They just have gutters and leading somewhere, I don't know. But yeah, it happened to them. So one of the tasks was to protect this one of the expensive building in Doha Education City, which is what they call the Carousel. It's a museum, but all the expensive artworks are at the basement, and it raises up and it spins around. So it's like you just need to stand there. You don't need to walk around the museum. It stands there and it revolves all the artworks. So try to imagine the mechanical parts and everything beneath the basement, and if it gets flooded, all the artworks are destroyed, of course. Okay, so we protected this in 2019. That's the building. With our mobile flood barrier, of course. These are Filipino engineers who went there to install it. And we protected 12 buildings along the city, 12 schools. The Education City is actually its composition of several schools, elementary school, colleges, doctor schools, and the like. And we need to ship more than 1.2 kilometers worth of flood barriers, shipped in 3 batches of flights coming from Clark straight to Doha. Why flight? Because it was really urgent. You know, in Doha, during October, they have this holiday where the emir is praying for rain. And then it was a joke, or it was told that perhaps the emir prayed too much. That's why in 2018, they had this very tremendous amount of rain. That's why it happened in November, because November is their rainy season in Doha. So that's why the order came in August. Of course, we still need to manufacture and to design everything. And they wanted to be flown in as quickly as possible because they wanted to be installed before November. And that's what happened. That's why we need to fly it in 3 batches. Okay, so that was the mobile flood barrier. Here is the National Convention Center. We need to install it with 500 meters worth of barrier to protect the entire convention center. Actually, during October, I think by next month, they will be installing it and putting it there for the next months, and then they take it out by December. That's how they actually use these barriers now. Okay, so yeah, that's the group CEO. He just said something. Here in the Philippines, Bataan, 2018, they experienced this heavy rain also, just like what we experienced in Carinnes. One of the most hit facility is the Jose C. Payumo Memorial Hospital. This is a district hospital in Dinalupihan, and also a COVID hospital back then. So imagine they have a lot of patients with the COVID, and they got this flooded. So of course the contamination, that was one of the concerns before. So the government of Germany donated, this was a government-funded program to protect the JCP-JMH against the flooding. We wanted to protect the entire facility, but so happened that it's so old and we cannot do much. It will take a lot of hard engineering or civil works just to improve the facility. So what we did is we just protected the entrances. No, it's really small. So I think they have around 22 entrances. So it was in 2021 when we actually turned over and commissioned it. Okay, so these are during the training. So we were wearing face masks because I think the ACQ is still up by then, that time. Okay, so this was a governor. He was still a governor back then, but now he's a congressman for Bataan. Okay, next. Okay, as I've mentioned, critical infrastructure, but for a homeowner, the critical infrastructure is his home, right? So you can also use it in your home. Actually, this homeowner in Ayala, Alabang actually experienced, this is in just July, Carinnes. So he shared us his video of the actual flooding in front of his house. So that's how he got protected also. So he has 3, I think, cars inside to protect. And lastly, of course, the residents of Arnel Ignacio. You know him, our OWA administrator. And that's what he said. So you can never go wrong with the technology of the Germans. Yeah, thank you for that. So during the Carinnes 2024, Madam Fatima and I, we were calling him, asking, how are you? Are you the Philippines? How are you doing? So he took we're doing it a live voice message while he was protected from the flooding of Carinnes. Actually, he mentioned that the flooding was higher than that earlier, but now it subsided when we called him. So that's why it's only about that. But still, the water is over his floor inside the house. Okay. So, yeah. So according to Dr. Andres Felipe, avoid unpredictable damages and losses caused by flood. Achieve real peace of mind with the right guaranteed flood solution. So, okay, I think, it's time to take action. So if you have any concerns, or if you want to discuss things with us, then you can have these contact numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. Yeah, that really is one of the more unusual solutions we've seen to managing floods. But you know, Alvin is really a flood engineer when he gets excited by looking at a picture of flood water through a plexiglass riverside wall. He really appreciates the beauty of the solution. So thank you, Alvin, for that. So we've listened to a variety of speakers so far this afternoon, and I'd like to bring on the last one, our last speaker for this afternoon. She is an anthropologist by profession, and she's an assistant professor at the University Brunei Darussalam, where she specializes in disaster and health inequalities in the global south. She earned her PhD in anthropology from UP Diliman, focusing on flooding and food insecurity among older adults in Manila. I know Carinnes from some work we done together at the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, or PDRF, and she's connected with institutions such as Brown University. That's why she worked with us at PDRF, and Loughborough University. She's currently leading a multi-country project known as Disaster Preparedness among Urban Communities in Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. And so that's one of the reasons why we invited Carinnes to join us today, because she had just published a paper on flood management in this area, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So I thought it would be good to listen to her perspective on how things are being managed from an anthropological perspective in these 4 countries. So now let us turn over the Zoom to Carinnes. Carinnes, can you see and hear us?
Yes. Hi, Bill. Thank you. Right. Let me just share my slides. Are you able to see my slides? Yes. All right, great. Thank you. Again, thank you to
Carinnes, sorry.
organizers.
Can you please put it on presentation mode?
Yes, hang on.
We'll see.
Yes, hang on. Presentation mode. All right, doing it again.
Can you try it again, please?
Will do. There, can you see it?
Great, thank you.
All right, fantastic. So as I was saying, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you to Mr. Bill Luz for the invitation, and to the members of the Liveable Cities PH. So I was actually planning to discuss about BIMP IAGA, but then again, I was thinking that to save time for more discussion, I'm gonna skip this whole discussion about BIMP IAGA. I'm assuming that somehow people know about BIMP IAGA, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and these are the parts of BIMP IAGA that are part of this economic organization. So it's not the entirety of the Philippines, it's mostly Palawan and Mindanao, and then parts of Indonesia, and then the whole island of Borneo, where I am based right now. In 2015, ADB did have a research that looked into the flood experiences and vulnerability of the communities within the Bimp-Iaga region. And so the rising sea level threatens coastal areas and small islands within this region. And this leads to loss of land, saltwater intrusion, and adverse effects on agriculture and fisheries, which are, by the way, critical to the livelihoods of many communities in the sub-region. So this study in 2015 is still pretty much a reality today. It's still the same sources of the hazards and vulnerability for the people. And so my project is looking into that as I want to understand how is the region grappling with compounded and complex disasters which are resulting from the overlap of hazards such as flooding, COVID-19, political unrest, and extreme heat, all happening at the same time in this vulnerable population. Not wanting to be too academic here, I'm going to skip the methodology of the project, but I would like to invite you to go take a screenshot of this or take a photo of this. My collaborators, wonderfully, an all-female cast coming from different disciplines, they have discussed the various experiences of hazard to flooding in each of the countries. So we have the one from Palawan, we have the one from Sarawak, one here from Brunei, and then of course the one from Banjarmasin in Indonesia. For this particular talk today, I would be highlighting the results of my fieldwork in Banjarmasin. Okay, so gonna come off a bit very interesting because we just had a discussion of technocratic solutions. Of course, solutions like that would work, especially if you have a lot of funding and a lot of political will, right? And governments would often rely on technocratic solutions like large-scale projects such as dams, drainage systems, barriers to manage flood. While these infrastructure-based approaches can be effective in certain areas, they are typically time-consuming, expensive, and inflexible, failing to adapt to the unpredictable nature of climate change. More importantly, they often overlook the unique needs of local communities who face the immediate impacts of floods. By focusing on technical fixes, these top-down solutions can neglect simple, community-driven actions that are faster, more affordable, and better suited to local conditions. Again, not dismissing this kinds of projects, just saying that there could be other options to look into. Now, what am I trying to propose then? I am hoping to discuss with you this afternoon about a whole society approach. What does this mean? A whole society approach involves collaboration between government, private sector, civil society, and communities, collaborating, coordinating together, not separately, to address complex challenges like disasters or other climate change related hazards. Each sector brings unique resources and expertise, creating more effective and sustainable solutions through coordinated efforts. This approach emphasizes inclusivity and coordination, recognizing that each group has unique strengths and resources. For instance, the government may provide policy direction and funding, while the private sector offers expertise and innovation. Civil society drives community engagement, and individuals or communities contribute local knowledge and direct action. At the center, and I say this not because I'm an anthropologist, but because it's very important, at the center of this is the community, who are the knowledge bearers and ought to be the primary decision maker for interventions in their area. Now, moving along, I would like to showcase some of the projects that the governments that the governments of the areas that are part of this research. So these images highlight the vital roles that governments play in whole society approach to disaster resilience. In Banjarmasin, Indonesia, for example, the government is restoring river areas where communities have historically resided, while also stationing rescue boats for emergencies. In Brunei, the Climate Change Secretariat or Office engaged communities in hazard mapping to improve local preparedness. I have to put I have to note here that Brunei doesn't have much of flooding, but there, because of the understanding that there might be climate change, the impacts of climate change will be coming in soon. They are preparing local communities already. So the Philippine Department of Science and Technology provided boats to flood affected communities. This is especially after Odette, to help restore the livelihoods of former fisher folk. Meanwhile, in Sarawak, here in Borneo, Malaysia, schools government collaborated with schools to train students on disaster preparedness. Now, while the interventions in Banjarmasin and the Philippines reflect technocratic approaches, they are nuanced. Okay, they're nuanced by incorporating the historical, cultural context of these communities. In Banjarmasin, for example, river dredging respects the community's deep-rooted ties to the river. Instead of removing the residents from the river where they have cultural ties to, they have invested in this response, which was approved and accepted by the community. The DOST's boat provision acknowledges as well the fisher folks' traditional livelihoods. This example show how technocratic solutions can be mixed with community consultation. Now, let me move on to another sector, which is the civil society. There are so many civil society working with communities, but for now, I just would like to focus on religious organizations. These organizations play a pivotal role in a whole society approach to disaster resilience due to their deep access to local communities because of the connection of faith and such. Their trusted presence allows them to mobilize quickly, providing essential services such as community kitchens, which offer food resources during emergencies. Caritas, Catholic-based, had efforts for relocation for affected communities to safer areas. In Indonesia, interfaith organizations run community kitchens and sustainable livelihood projects. Okay, let me now move to the private sector. We have been hearing a lot from the private sector during this afternoon, and just a brief context here. In 3 countries here, there's no Malaysia discussion for now, but private sector plays a key role in humanitarian assistance and development. In the Philippines, we are very much aware about the PDRF's role in humanitarian relief efforts. And then in Brunei, the bank BIBD delivers essential assistance during flooding events. And then in Indonesia, another bank, Bank Cancel, collaborates with local communities to promote sustainable climate resilient livelihood. Now, let's go to the community level. So we've seen the government, we've seen the civil society, we've seen the private sector, their action, their collaboration with the community. Now, what are the communities doing? And I would like to give some examples. For example, in Banjarmasin, built along rivers. By the way, Banjarmasin is called the city of 1,000 rivers. And it is true, it is a lot of rivers. There are a lot of rivers there. They created floating farms and gardens as examples of how local communities adapt to their watery environment. By constructing floating systems, residents mitigate the impact of flooding on their livelihood. Some houses are being propped by floating devices as well, as these structures could rise and fall with the water level. This approach reflects practical, sustainable solutions. In Caritas Village, you would notice that in this photo here with the boats, the locals created, the community members created some kind of bamboo raft that they used as dock for their boats, but also as transportation for evacuation, having learned the lessons of Odette, where their entire community was wiped out and without transportation. Now, on some other household level responses, this is my favorite in my fieldwork in Indonesia, an early warning device. So in Indonesia, there is a family there actually created a hole on their walkway. Why? Because this is an early warning system that they're implementing in their community. The floor holes are meant to monitor rising water levels. And this helped the community to act quickly and resolve and to evacuate. And of course, Carita, we have here Brunei elevating the key areas like kitchen, toilet, and entrances, and of course some simplified solar panels in the Philippines in Caritas village. All right, I have 2 more slides. Hang on. What are the lessons that we are taking from Banjarmasin? So I'd like to highlight this particular village. Earlier, it was mentioned that Indonesia has a good recycling recycling culture already. It's a culture. So Indonesia created what you call as Proclim Village. There are probably 2,000 Proclim Village in Indonesia. This is government sponsored in collaboration with private sector and NGOs and such. It's a whole society approach. Now, what is this particular Proclim Village? With me in that picture, in that group photo, is the mayor. Beside me is the mayor. With me are the community leaders, the academe, the private sector, all. It was an easy meeting. Why? Because everybody can easily talk to each other, despite the huge population that they have. Now, what is up with this Proclim Village? Let me jump into this one. This is how they are dealing with trash and with other vulnerabilities they have. Proclim Village projects revolve around a comprehensive approach to nutrition, livelihood, reproductive health, which are all centered or related to trash collection. Community members are encouraged to bring both biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste to a designated center where they can exchange it for an income. It's not cash, by the way. For this village that won multiple national awards and international awards, it's gold. So the community members love gold. So they have a bank wherein they put in the equivalent of gold. So you will have gold savings, which reminds me of the Filipino saying ginto sa basura. So, but anyway, this innovative system not only helps manage waste, but also supports the community's financial stability. The collected trash is then recycled into various products that the government is actually managing, like those displayed on your screen, fostering a circular economy and contributing to both environmental sustainability and community well-being. This initiative further illustrates a whole society approach. Once they're able to not be afraid of their food security, tenure, trash, they can focus on addressing how to be more resilient with flooding, because this community gets flooded all the time. Even the plants behind those ladies, you will see, are elevated so that when flooding comes in, the plants will survive. I'll end my discussion here, and I'm now open for your questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carinnes, for bringing such different perspective, I guess, from the whole panel. Your anthropology background is really coming through, and your focus on communities. But what I like about it is that these are examples of communities adapting to their local condition in very practical ways. So instead of seeking outside solutions, they've really been able to apply locally initiated and locally adaptive solutions. So this is great. So to start the Q&A, actually, stay on screen, Carinnes, and let me invite our 3 panelists up here up front. Ivanna, Alvin, and Carlo. And let's get Nick Jabagat back on screen as well. Can we flash Nick on the screen behind me? Okay. And oh yeah, I see Nick. Okay, great. And then let's go to the questions. Now, those of you who've been through the labs before, you know how this works. We take questions from the room here at Aboitiz Tech Space. We take questions from Zoom, and they should be in the chat box, but they're relayed up to me usually, or we can see them. And we take questions from Facebook, our live stream, and we try to take on as many questions as possible. We have time. So the floor is open. Just speak, if you're speaking from the room, just speak loudly and clearly, and the overhead microphones will pick up your questions. And if not, I will ask questions based on what's being given to me on the phone. So let's open it up for questions. Who would like to ask the first question? Okay, I see. I'll start here and then I'll go to Joel. Please go ahead. Kindly just introduce yourself and your organization and who you are addressing your question to.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is a very comprehensive presentation involving, almost all sectors. I am Mars Mendoza. I represent the developers. I am the chairman of the Organization of Socialized and Economic Housing Developers. And my questions would be from a experiential perspective. First of all, I'm very glad that in Cagayan de Oro, the typhoon damages to deaths, have possibly halos wala na, very few. On an emotional note, my construction manager perished during Ondoy, and I was involved in the relocation site of Bishop Antonio Ledesma for Typhoon Sendong victims. Okay. I have just 3 points. Number one, from the point of view of developers, what we see is the drainage is only viewed from the adjacent area in planning as well as in permitting. So it's possible that, you sold probably the neighborhood or the neighboring lands, but how it impacts on the whole barangay or even the town or even the city probably needs a lot of more detail. Number two, the present dispensation is pushing on high-rise communities, mid-rise to high-rise communities. I don't know how will this impact densification. We know, of course, as has been stated, the more concrete you have, the faster the runoff, and probably the flooding will not be able to cope up. Number three, my comment is on the CLUP, the Comprehensive Land Use Plan that has been over-abused in terminology. But I think there is a lot of lacking on a flood plan that would probably be studied with the CLUP or Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Okay, now, my last point is actually my question. There has been a lot of reclamation already undertaken and a lot more in the works in various parts of the country. Now, my question to whoever would want to answer is, historically or experientially in other countries, how has reclamation impacted on flooding?
Okay, thank you for the question. First couple of comments. Let me go to Nick to ask you in terms of the overall flood planning, the CLUP. Does that fall under your office at the city DRRM office, or are you coordinating with your building officials and planning officials in City Hall?
Well, actually, with regards to the city land use plan, it is anchored on the city planning office, but we're also part of the crafting of the CLUP. It's very true that most of the LGUs are overtaken by the development instead of the advanced planning on the land use.
That's the dilemma right now, same with Cagayan de Oro, since there is a fast land conversion and development, especially in the hinterlands, that doesn't have any mitigating uh, factors that can solve flooding in the future, just like what the gentleman told earlier, that we should be more sensitive, no? Especially on the land conversion and development, on your runoff water. It should be involved in the plan, in the development. And right now, we're focusing on the land use plan ordinance, because it's very useless for a land use plan that doesn't have any like something to implement or enforce something for you to have these improvements. That's the challenge. I think not just for Cagayan de Oro, but for the most of the LGUs that are fast developing.
Thank you, Nick. Alvin, let me go to you from your experience. You've done work in many countries, many cities. Reclamation, what's the impact that you see on flooding? Contribute to flooding or controls flooding?
Well, generally, reclamation, for me, it can or may not contribute to flooding. It depends on the situation. But as I mentioned earlier, the flooding is the cause of this river outflow, that they are already overcapacitated because of the land development. Imagine all the barren lands before that are open. Now they are converted to concrete, and the drainage system are leading all of these rivers. And that is causing much of the flooding, actually, especially here in Metro Manila, because everything leads to the steros and leading to the drainage leading to the steros and leading to the tributary rivers like Pasig, Marikina River, and the others. So, but when it goes to the outfall, it leads to the Manila Bay, right? But of course, once it goes to the Manila Bay, then it's already in the open sea. Whether there's a reclamation or not, if they have enough space that they have provided for the water for the outfall, then that is okay. Provided, but if the reclamation is up to the shoreline and they didn't consider the drainage system, then that can also cause the flooding. As I mentioned by our friend here from the contractor, sir, when we are designing, let's say, our facility, when we are designing the drainage system, we only design it, or most of the problem is they only design it that the drainage system is the capacity of their building, right? So let's say you have a building that, just an example, you have an outfall or a discharge of 10 cubic meter per second, just an example. Then what will the designers do? They will design a drainage system that can accommodate 10 or 15 cubic meter per second just to compensate their outfall. But they haven't considered that their neighbor is a much higher elevation, and all the outfall of that neighbor is also leading to your own drainage system, and they are discharging, let's say, 20 cubic meter. So now the drainage system on your own is having a 30 cubic meter per second flow. So these are the things that are not really considered. So for me, the first, Manila is the drainage system is really outdated. So they're not designed for the population right now. Then the reclamation, I think because it's quite far off, right, from the shore of Manila, Roas Boulevard and the Cavite side. So I don't see, for this example, I don't see that it will be a much of a problem unless they haven't considered the factors of this outfall coming from the tributary rivers. That's what I can say.
Thanks, Alvin. I have a follow-up question then, and maybe for you and Nick, which is, if that's the case, when you file for a building permit, who takes into account that drainage system? The owner, or should it also be, should the office of the building official have a say in that as well? Because, I mean, obviously they would know all the permits that have been filed along that particular neighborhood or the city for that matter. So shouldn't they have a say in granting in approving the drainage of developments?
Well, I cannot say in behalf of the government, but I think that the urban planner or the planning division should have seen this. If they designated that this area will be a commercial or industrial area, they have calculated supposedly the water outfall of each facility, and they know already supposedly the drainage that will be leading to a certain river channel or water channel. So it's really up to the planning, how can they actually adapt. If they want to develop an area and turn it into a residential or a commercial or industrial area, they should be ready and think about the drainage system. It's not an easy task that you just simply put pipes. You should really consider all the improvements this area can do. Sometimes, especially in the commercial area, when we building this, it's like what Architect Palafox is always saying. Sometimes we only have, let's say, 1,000 square meter of area, but what they will do is not just a single floor building. They will do a high-rise building with the 20 or even 40 floors. That, of course, has much water outfall than the lower area. So sometimes those are not considered, of course, on the drainage side, right? So, of course, the city government have calculated only for 1,000 square meters. They have their parameters, but they haven't considered that it will be built with higher floors, with more domestic waterways that will be leading out to the drainage system. So these are the factors that should be led to a really careful planning on the government side.
Thanks, Alvin. Nick, does your office coordinate with the office of the building official? Do you have a say, for instance? Because that's going to affect your work at the end of the day, right?
Well, actually, it's sad to say now that our office is not involved in especially in the acquiring the building permit or any construction, like for example, subdivisions. But we only certify on the land if it's high risk, what hazards are on that area. But on the specifications, especially what engineer told us with regards to the displaced water on the construction site, in the future, that is on the discussion prior to the construction. But we can only recommend. We don't have an ordinance that they should have this water retention or any green building design that would minimize the impact of this runoff water, especially right now that the uptown area of Aguiling-Dela City is fast developing. Most of the subdivisions, the newly opened subdivisions, are the cause of flooding in that area because of the very poor drainage system.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Joel, you had a question?
I'm Joel Tantos from University of Philippines. I'd like to ask Carlo, or I'll give you the context. Globe, or the Globe group of companies, enjoys this good and strategic position where they are able to leverage and tap the resources of the companies of the conglomerate. Now, like for example, the data company business that you mentioned can tap the data, say, sources of Globe, GCash, etc. I'd like to ask, in this situation of data sharing, what are the shortcomings or the challenges and maybe the opportunities that the group faces as far as, again, access to data sharing, data quality, data privacy, those points. Thank you very much.
Okay, to answer that, I believe Globe has invested in a lot of resources to make sure that the data that we have is actually protected. So that's one. So in terms of challenges, I think that's one of the few. One challenge is of course regulation. So it's not easy to share data, and we adhere or we stick to very strict information security, compliance, governance, and data cleansing. So if ever we share data through the use of, for example, one of our platforms in Kiro, we make sure that data is clean. We only share what is allowed by law to be shared, and we make sure that there's no personal identifiable information that we share to the companies that want access to our data.
Carlo, I'll ask a question pertaining to your data and, say, floods or an emergency situation. You can see the footfall, and you can see, presumably you can see where the floods are, right? You see those in real time, and if you see them in real time, are you able to either warn people or at least warn the LGU to warn people? If you can't get in touch with people directly, can you tell an LGU, say Marikina or whoever, that there are floods here and maybe they could redirect people, or people will just redirect themselves? Because some people will either walk in a different direction or take a detour, but some have no choice. So how do you handle that with the data that you have?
Okay. Number one is planning. So this is one area where globe data can be very useful in building infrastructure, like what Alvin said. So careful planning requires proper forecast. The data that you need or that you have must be accurate, must be active, and must be very recent, right? So that's one area where we can help to plan using our footfall analysis data. So to help LGUs to plan infrastructure in their cities. Second is during preparedness. So whenever there's a storm coming, we can reference to Globe's data. To answer the question first, is the data real time? It's not really real time, but it's a most recent last week's data, because we need to do data cleansing and processing before we actually share the data. So that is one. So at least the most recent data we can leverage on that to get cities be prepared when a typhoon is coming. So for example, maybe a use case can be if we know that there's a typhoon coming in the next week or in the next 2 weeks, we can get data from Globe on who are the users, or more or less the population that are near the area. So through M360 platform, without sharing their personal information, of course, we can send messages or communicate with those people that might be affected to help them prepare for the typhoon. So that's one. That's the second.
And I guess at the very least, you can warn the LGU if you don't broadcast it to individuals, right? The information, you can at least tell the mayor, yes. Then the mayor can take care of the information.
Yes. So we can provide data on how many people might be possibly affected by the typhoon, and have them prepare for example, facilities like how many maybe women will be affected, so they can prepare evacuation plans based on the demographics of the people that are actually within their area, and help them prepare for facilities to serve them.
Okay. So Carlo, you, Dennis, and myself ought to get together with PDRF, and maybe we can work it out, because we do have forecasts that are going to be running 1 week to 10 days ahead, which we can share with you, and then you can plot your footfall and movement based on most recent data. Yeah. Oh, sounds great. Okay, Ivanna, on your part, this is a bit of a tough question, but is there sort of a calculation on how much, say, plastic waste or tonnage of PET bottles that need to be collected to have a significant impact on on reducing floods? Have you run a number like that at Coke? How many kilos or tons would you have to collect to have a visible impact on floods?
Maybe two levels of answers to that. First is, while there is an EPR, which is 80% collection by 2028, what we really want to do at Coke, and this is the global commitment, so that means collectively in all our markets, it needs to be 100% collection. So the number, although the number would be helpful, and this is where data also comes in, that's why I'd like to talk to you afterwards, Carlo. It would be helpful to see, like you said, what targets do we need to get year on year. We do have our internal targets leading up to the 100% by 2030, but also all our efforts are really ramping up towards a complete 100% globally.
Okay. So just as an example, when you say 100%, so let's equate it to bottles, for instance, right?
And cans.
And cans. How many units, how many bottles, how many cans would that be equivalent to?
So that's every can and bottle that we sell.
It must be
in the
millions,
market.
right?
It's definitely, yes, billions globally. Yeah.
Globally, right? So this is, I think, something that, all of us can contribute towards, because I'm sure many of you here are Coke drinkers, whether bottle or cans. I know I am, so I'm a big Coke Zero consumer, so I try to collect everything I can. But we have to figure out where to give it to, right? So what's the quickest way for a consumer to give their, at least what they consume, where can they return the empties?
So if you already have a waste collector in your own city, which the big cities would have, and usually, so our partner is Best, I think Siege from Best did attend one of the Liveables, one of your labs. They would collect it and sell it to a recycling facility. So what's important at the household level is that we segregate, because it's tougher, it takes more time, you need to wash it. It's better even if you can, outside of segregation, if you already clean and make sure that the bottles are dry and that the PET is separate already from the caps.
Okay.
Because those are two different types of plastics as well. And as well, if you want to take a step further, take out the label, because again, that's a different type of plastic. So these are the things that make recycling a little bit more time consuming if it's dirty. So segregation at the household level is really the number one call to action. So and I hear a lot of people, but when the waste collector get it, they dump it all in one space anyway. Yes and no. Yes, they do that, but at the same time, when it does get to the recyclers, they're gonna have to segregate again. So if you're already segregating it at your level, they're not going to put it back together because there is money in plastic, right? So, and this is why the work with the informal waste collector is also very important. The whole training, the solid waste management planning is very important. Of course, there's awareness in the public, but from the barangay workers level and the NGO, so like Alejandria was talking about whole of society approach, so that's exactly the approach that we're also hoping to have in waste management.
Yeah. So yeah, clearly there's an individual sort of responsibility and initiative that each of us can take. But at the same time, I guess we should recognize that recycling is basically, it's a business. So that personal responsibility we take also contributes to a business enterprise by a micro, small, and medium scale enterprise as well. So that it's an economically productive exercise that I think that we need to do. I see a question back here, but let me first go to Carinnes. One minute. Let me go to Carinnes. Carinnes, you've seen examples. You mentioned, Brunei and Indonesia. Malaysia, and the Philippines. And some of them are really nice, simple solutions. Do you find, or is there a way that people are able to learn from each other across villages, across barangays, or across countries? Or are people just individually ingenious enough to figure these things out on their own? Or can we speed it up and accelerate all these lessons being transferred from place to place?
That's a great question, Bill. The thing is, we cannot use blanket approach for these things just because communities have different histories with them. And so what would have worked, like the floor, the very interesting early warning
Early
system
warning, yeah.
floor. Yeah, that wouldn't work. And let's say in Baseco, where I did a long time of field work, just because it's not part of their imagination yet. So I think now working towards your idea, and this is something that we are hoping to do with this project, at least in the BIMP Iaga, where they share the same environment and such, and maybe a bit of a same cultural experience. It might be helpful to share good practices. And so we are bringing the community together, not training, because the problem with us most of the time is that we only train the easily trainable members of the community, and we create a new set of elites within that community. So the good thing is to bring the training to the community, and then bring these people together and have them talk to each other, and not have the academic or the private sector or somebody else be the mediator of this discussion. So this has worked in several countries already, but here in BIMP Iaga, we haven't done that yet. So we're hoping to do that sometime this February with the Borneo cluster, because they're sharing the same island. So let's see if they can share solutions with one another that they can copy.
I was thinking more along the lines that it's not a straight copy. It can be, but it need not necessarily be a straight copy or knockoff, but enough of an idea to be planted so that people will start seeing, hey, can I think of something similar that might work in my place that I hadn't thought of before? It's kind of more that type of experience, I think.
Yeah, this is where the whole society approach will come in, because if we let the community do this just on their own, it will be a bit of a struggle, just because they're also managing several vulnerabilities. The 2,000 proclaimed villages in Indonesia, not all of them are successful. And so Ibu Agusliana, the winner all the time, has shared with us that it is the powerful connection that she has with the mayor, the bank, and the NGOs that allowed the community to believe in the ideas. So to make the communities successfully navigate the vulnerabilities they have, they do need support from more established organizations. They can tell us what ideals they have, what aspirations they have, but without the finances, without the logistics for this, it is hard to make it a reality. So that I think will be a key instigator. And so I love the whole presentation, especially of Coca-Cola. Like when you were discussing it, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's going on in Indonesia, but in gold, not in cash. So yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Ivanna. You've got your TE Milers program, your people are redeeming waste and they're getting product, or they're getting credits on their card or their phone or something. And in Carinnes' case, they were getting gold. Gold. Actually, gold sounds more attractive because the price of gold has been going up. by the
I
way.
wanted to join
Yeah.
that too.
Price of gold is going up, but I think, Ivanna, you also told me that in Vietnam they were using reverse vendo machines, right? So I mean there are different things going on, and so when you thought of the program for the Philippines, I mean, were you copying Indonesia or it's serendipitous?
There's definitely knowledge sharing going on, especially in the ASEAN region. So I do handle Vietnam, Cambodia. We look at Indonesia a lot, again, because you have a very robust recycling economy. In fact, during one of the USABC mission, there was an ADB representative talking about a blue loan mechanism that they've put out in Indonesia and that they're hoping to also put out in the Philippines. And that just means if there's a business case in the Philippines for more recycling facilities, then they can support that because they've done it successfully in Indonesia.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we had the question back there. Yes, please go ahead. 2 questions. We'll have you ask them one after the other, and then we'll take the answers from the panel. Go ahead.
I actually have a question for each of the speakers, but I'll just go to my priority question if I'm allowed one, Bill.
Okay.
My name is Al Mayoralgo. I'm with Barangay San Lorenzo. This is where you are right now. Welcome. I had the disaster planning for our San Lorenzo village, and I'm also with the planning team for the barangay. Okay. So my question is clear and specific to our friend from Globe, and it's similar to what you're driving at, Bill. We have been trying to really sophisticate our evacuation planning in the respective high-rise buildings, because Barangay San Lorenzo is unique. We have a residential village, but we have a central business district. And we also have a super regional commercial center, which is Ayala Center. So at different points in time, you will have population concentrations in the mall, in the high-rise buildings, or wherever. And we all know that has implications for disaster evacuation planning in case of the big one. We have been trying to determine scientific way, just finding out how many heads are in the peak capacity of this building on a peak working day, on a Thursday afternoon, for example. How many kids are in school in Assumption, or at AIM, or in San Agustin, or in Ateneo, etc., etc. There are difficulties in securing that information. But you mentioned that it may be possible to provide, for want of a better term, anonymous data. Would you be able to help the city of Makati and Barangay San Lorenzo and tell us, okay, Al, on a peak time, Friday afternoon at 4, every building will have this number of cell phones there. That means that's the population reading. Are you able to share something like that? Or let's say, at peak time on a weekend, iba naman pag weekend, it's the malls that are filled. We'd like to know. If we know those numbers, then we can plan how we can deploy our resources at specific scenarios. That's my main question.
Okay, thanks, Al. We'll get to that answer in a minute. Carlo, I'll go to you. You have the next question over here, please.
Well, I'm by the way, Jesse Las Marias. I was a policy researcher for irrigation at the Senate for 10 years. And I met Bill Luz 20 years ago. He was very young looking then that time. Okay, he looks very much, well, not exactly older, but a lot wiser, of course. Okay, my concern really is I was really looking for a solution to the excessive rainfall. What are we going to do about it? Because when we have too much of rainfall, we have flooding. But during summertime, we don't have enough water for everybody to share. So what can we do about excessive rainfall? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So let me go to Carlo, then I'll ask Alvin if there's a solution there.
Okay, so to answer that question, yes. we do have a platform which was what I talk about this afternoon. That is Inkiro. So all of the data that you need, that is what Inkiro is actually was made for. So all of the data, it's available to Inkiro. We have over 600 plus data sets and data points where LGUs or private companies can access, of course, within the bounds of our data privacy. It's all available in Inkiro.
Okay, thanks. Alvin, I mean, you control floodwater, so using the same logic, can you impound that same water and then with the proper treatment, it could become useful?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you do that?
Actually, when the company started way back in 1990, it's not actually a flood barrier, but it's a containment barrier where we started. So it used to contain water inside the facility when there's fire. Okay, because when let's say inside a factory there's fire, of course the first thing that will activate are the sprinklers, and this water will flood inside the building and will go all over the place. So what we do is we contain them chamber by chamber so that it will not infiltrate or will not go with the other chambers, and especially with chemicals. Now, as we move forward and develop these things, now that's why we become the flood barrier. But now we are also into a water containment, but it's more like a water retardation. I'm sure most of our engineers here already know about this, that in some buildings they do this, to collect the water. They have the cistern tanks to collect the water from the rain or wherever. They even filter it so that there's no much dirt, like debris or leaves or plastics, that they can use. So the question earlier was raised because we have so much water during the rainy season, and that causes flooding, and then we have so little during the dry season that we even face water interruption services, right? So perhaps what we can suggest that each facility like hotels, these are the guys who are using water to vegetate, to water their vegetation, like especially golf courses, to have some kind of a tank that they can collect rainwater and then use it on the dry season. First, that it can be used as water retardation to hold the water during the flood. This can really help because, as I mentioned earlier, the main cause of flooding is the runoff, because all the water is leading to the drainage system. But if you have the capacity to hold the water first, just like a normal traffic at EDSA, right? If we control the volume of cars passing EDSA, then we will not have much traffic at the peak hours. Same with flooding. If we can hold the water first during this hard rain, contain the water first. It can be placed underneath your building, your basement. You can have big tanks, and then pump it out when it's dry. So at that sense, you're not contributing to the water surge. That also adds up to the volume of water that is passing during the hard rain. Plus, if you can contain it and use it during the dry season, then that will help, because you will not be utilizing fresh water coming from our water services just for vegetation or cleaning the streets or cleaning your basements. So you can use this collected rainwater for that. You don't need the treated water or potable water just for cleaning. So that will save a lot, will help during the dry season.
Thanks, Alvin. Actually, the system that Alvin is describing is in use in BGC.
Yep.
So if you notice, BGC does not flood because underneath Burgos Circle is a very large, I think 7-story deep cistern, which holds all the water, and then it's released slowly after. Okay, we have only a few more minutes, and Alvin, I'm gonna ask you the last question. And the question is this: have you taken proactive solutions to offer your services to flood-prone LGUs? That's number one. And actually, the other question, same is related, is that why is the government not using more of such a proven technology that looks, affordable?
It's quite difficult to answer. That actually we have presented since we were here in 2014. Yeah, Ma'am Fatima there. She's been with us or with me when presenting this to LGUs. No? We've been a lot from north to south, from Tuguegarao down to Davao City, and any city in between. So we presented this, and sad to say though, that of course the problem is that our government has this very short span of tenure in their seat. They're only there for 3 years. But these projects require more than 3 years to fulfill. Every flood control project doesn't come in just 1 or 2 years. It requires a lot of planning. It requires a whole lot of engineering work and calculations and all. And for me, it takes more than 3 years to accomplish. So that's why, for my just my humble opinion, okay, that some officials are not really into it because they know that it will just be a legacy for them to fulfill, or I don't know what will be the reason. But whenever we present this, then we prepare them the budget, of course, how much it will cost them to implement such project, and then all of a sudden, the time is out. Then another batch of officials will be in power, and then the project goes back to square one. So I think that's the real reason for the moment that as we have experienced. Although I'm not saying that all LGUs are like that. There are some LGUs, as I've mentioned, the Batan, the European Hospital already protected their own, by their own. So perhaps these massive solutions really far-fetched. Not really far-fetched. It's doable, but it really takes a lot of time and effort and resources to accomplish. That's why we are always an advocate to protect the critical infrastructure first. At least these are much cheaper, much faster to do, and faster reaction time because we can protect anything in less than a month if it's really doable. But to do it with these massive ones that we have, I've shown you, although it's doable, but I don't think that our government is prepared for that kind of projects.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated. I think we can devote a whole afternoon just to discussing that. But since we're running out of time, let me just also give a chance to the other speakers to put in the last word. Carlo, any last items you'd like to take up?
Okay, as I mentioned, we're very much willing to work with the cities to help them in terms of in their advocacy to be ready and to be resilient in times of disaster, so we can always stop globe, and we are happy to share to collaborate with you to share what we have.
Great, thank you, Carlo. Ivanna, any last words?
I guess in the same thread, we'd also like to invite our local government units to participate in our programs, training programs for economic empowerment, for solid waste management. We do it with TESDA. We do provide MRF support together with our partners as well. So if you'd like to collaborate in this area, yeah, we'd love to do that with you.
Thanks, Ivanna. Carinnes, from your position there in Brunei, any last words for us?
I always say that I envy that I'm not Bruneian. A government that immediately responds to the need of its population. They don't even have a proper civil society here to, donate food or whatever. There is a strong political action from the government to the affected communities. And the communities as well collaborate, directly addresses their needs to the government. And so I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. We need to trust our community to be able to understand what they're going through. And we need to also make sure that those ideas go to government, NGOs, and such, so that we can harness all our resources together to address this. Again, flooding, I love what you said earlier, Bill. Flooding is a hazard that happens. only becomes a disaster because we have poor policies, we have poor responses and preparedness for it. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Carinnes. Yeah, maybe I didn't make it clear to everybody, but Carinnes is from the Philippines. She taught at UST, got her PhD at UP, and then is now teaching at University of Brunei. But thanks, Carinnes, for joining us. Nick, any last words from Cagayan de Oro?
Yes, thank you very much for inviting us, and I'm also inviting the engineer. No, maybe you could visit Cagayan de Oro. You could have urban flooding solutions, no, with your company. You're very welcome here. Try to visit Cagayan de Oro.
Thank you, Nick. Actually, the Liveable Cities team with Urban Connect, we're going to be in Cagayan de Oro in 2 weeks. So we're going to see the mayor and hopefully get to see you as well when we're there on the 26th of September. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank all of you for joining us on Zoom, on Facebook Live, and here at the Aboitiz Tech Space in AIM. As always, it's been an educational session at Liveable Cities Labs. I think we can see that there are many ways to provide solutions from, as Carinnes says, the technocratic way of doing things, and we have a lot of data-intensive ways of doing things, and sort of a very community-oriented way of getting things done. So I'd like to think that all these different examples can be used in some combination in an LGU somewhere in the country, especially those who are particularly flood prone, but even those which are really disaster prone, if not flood prone, maybe a different type of disaster. But thank you for joining us this afternoon. We've got our next session, just to give you a heads up, October 9th, here again at Aboitiz Tech Space. We're going to focus on food security and malnutrition. That's going to be on October 9th. I mentioned Cagayan de Oro, so that's September 26th. You can catch that on Zoom, unless you are in Cagayan de Oro at that time. But September 26th, the Liveable Cities Lab will be in Cagayan de Oro in the afternoon. And you can see it's posted there, the Zoom links. And then on November 20th, we're going to be talking about transport and mobility. In particular, we're going to talk about electric vehicles. EVs, not only for passengers, not passenger cars only, not motorcycles, but we're going to include commercial vehicles, which are delivery vehicles, and of course, shuttle services and mass transit. So different forms of EVs that we will feature on November 20th, venue to be announced. Before I close today, I want to thank our partners, Globe Telecom, League of Cities of the Philippines, and Asian Institute of Management for helping us organize today. If you take a picture of the QR code, we'd appreciate your feedback. If you are on Zoom or Facebook Live, you can catch the picture on your screens now and give us the feedback forms. And for those of you in need of certificates of attendance, that you will get it after you submit the forms back to us. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon in Liveable Cities. And maybe one last reminder I should give is that normally we serve you snacks across the hallway in the Stephen Fuller Hall. So the good news is we're still going to serve you snacks, but the bad news is we're going to have to go down into the AIM Conference Center, Accede, so that's just one building over, and take the elevator to the 5th floor at the bistro over there, and we will serve snacks and continue to answer any of the questions you may have. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you on the other side at Accede on the 5th floor. Thank you.
Ask for a photo. may we request for a group photo? Just the participants here, can we just stand up and converge at the center for a group photo? And then for the snacks, our ushers, you'll see them wearing some signs, and we'll all walk together back to AIM Conference Center. Okay, converge po sa gitna, and then let's have a group shot. Squeeze in. Thank you. Okay, one. Okay, thank you. And now, please, we invite you to bistro at the AAM Conference Center. That's 5th floor. As you head out, our team will be leading you there. Thank you.
White na. Saan ka? Si Sinjo. Dito. Kaya mo bigyan ka natin. Data siya, data analytics. So parang meron parang kaka-release nyo lang na naka-attend ng presentation. Pwede to sa LG. Kaya sabi ko yung pero very truthful and di ba no? Pero mas granular parang ano na ito, parang 2 weeks ako tapos ginagawa ko sila, i-review pa nila pero nga ay ko, i-review ikpiro talaga at tayo sa gusto nyo, ikpiro yung pupush ko si ano kailangan sa sabay-sabay